Starting PEDs was the best and worst decision I have ever made. This decision made me the most confident I have ever been, while also the most insecure that I've ever been. The biggest I've ever been, while also the smallest. The smartest, but also the dumbest. Before I get into specifics, I want to be clear. This video is being made strictly for educational purposes. My goal is to give you guys a better understanding of what you're putting into your body so you guys can make well and informed decisions for your own journey. So, let's get into it. I'm gonna give you guys a rundown on all of the compounds that I ran for this year's 2024 Olympia prep, starting off with testosterone and enanthate. Now, I ran tests from the start of this prep all the way till about 5 days out, removing it due to the water retention that typically can come with it. Also, Masteron propionate. Masteron prop is a fast-acting ester. I injected this every single day, starting at 10 weeks out from my show. And then Tren Ace. I started Tren at about 8 to 9 weeks out from the Olympia, and this was also an everyday injection. Then we had Winstrol. My Winstrol was tapered up accordingly, but I started off with 50 milligrams, starting off at about 8 weeks out from the show, and then again titrated up throughout the prep, removing it once the show was over. Clenbuterol. Now that was used sparingly, dependent on the time frame or how my body was responding, but I did use Clenbuterol pretty early, so about 14 weeks out from the show, and then again it was increased as according to my look and so on and so forth. Anavar, and I take this one very serious because Anavar is oftentimes faked. I was very blessed to get this from a clinic, but I did run 50 mgs of Anavar up until about 4 weeks out from the show. And then Halo. So Halo is considered a quote unquote hardener. I ran this at about 3 weeks out from my show, and that was also titrated up accordingly. And now Arimidex. Arimidex is an anti-estrogen. I'm somebody who does hold a lot of estrogen in their body with the additional compounds that I was using. So because of that, I had to use an AI pretty consistently throughout my prep, and that was also increased as I got closer to the show, and also as my dosages increased throughout the process of the entire prep. Oh, and I cannot forget T3. Now, my thyroid has always had a tendency to downregulate in a prep. So as you are pushing your body and lowering food, your thyroid has a tendency of downregulating, whether you're natural or enhanced. So utilizing T3 did allow my thyroid to kind of upregulate, or at least stay within a productive range to actually lose body fat. So that might be a big reason some people might not be losing body fat, especially if they diet down aggressively. So just to keep that in mind, it's something that you shouldn't use unless you absolutely have to use, but nonetheless, I did use T3 throughout my prep. And believe it or not, that is a pretty common cycle for most IFBB pros as well as Olympians. You may see people opt out of using one or two of those specific compounds dependent on how their body responds to it, but like I said, it is pretty common for them to use those following things. Now, I want to be very clear. The amounts that I did take was left out because I wanted to make sure that I didn't entice those who didn't heed my warning to do just that. Even though they might look up to my look, I strongly believe a lot of these compounds and the aggressive nature that I took in taking these compounds was a big reason why I placed where I did at this year's Olympia. Over the last couple of years, the side effects that I was feeling and seeing just became a new norm to me. Earlier in the video, I expressed at one point, I was the most confident I've ever been while also being the most insecure. And a lot of that reason was simply due to these side effects. Growing up, I've always had acne, but it got to a point in high school where I started to feel more confident about myself, not only because I was getting bigger and I started to fall in love with weight training, but my skin started to clear up. And now I wasn't a bodybuilder at that point, but once I did make that jump into bodybuilding, I noticed all of those reasons why I was insecure growing up started to come back. And my skin was a massive reason for that. It was hard for me to look in the mirror, and again, some of those old thoughts that I had back in the day started to manifest itself again when I was an adult. And as much as I loved the way that my body was changing, I just almost hated looking in the mirror while at the same time. So again, I was confident by also being so insecure, and it was just a double-edged sword. I mean, it just wasn't something easy for me to digest. And over the last year, I've noticed a side effect that really started to take place that really made me feel uncomfortable, which was simply hair thinning. You know, I've always grown up with a thick head of hair. I've always been known for having a thick head of hair. And as my dosages started to increase, I noticed that my hair started to decrease. And this honestly is the reason why I'm making this video in the first place, because I actually wasn't privy to it and I was kind of blind to it. It wasn't happening, so I didn't think it would happen. But nonetheless, that side effect was probably the most difficult to truly take on. And because of that, I actually started to lower my dosages and noticed the thickness of my hair instantly started to come back. So I know a lot of guys out there are very insecure about that in itself. And trust me, you are not alone. This is one of those things where I started to try different things in order to help grow my hair and feel more comfortable and confident in my own skin again. But again, it's one of those things that don't come on the side of a PED, label. At the end of the day, it's, at your own risk. And you guys may have heard me say in previous videos that I'm gonna take some time to focus on not only getting my body healthy, but also spending more quality time with my family and growing a family. And PEDs actually affected that as well. Recently I did an at-home test, a fertility test, and I noticed that my sperm count was low. And because of that, it's actually pushing our timeline back to have a baby. And that now doesn't only affect me, it affects my wife. And that's something that made me also truly look in the mirror and ask myself, what is truly important? I'm young. I have to make sure that I'm not going through this life in bodybuilding blindly in order to reach a goal that, again, doesn't need to be right now. I need to prioritize, what's truly important in order for me to, be happy. And that one hurt. And lastly, hormonal imbalances. Ladies are not the only ones who have hormones. Guys, I'm telling you right now, not only is the hair, not only is the thyroid, not only is the skin, all of these things will affect your hormones, right? So you have to make sure that your mood, your energy, your sex drive, all of these things are focused on and prioritized. Otherwise, you will regret it later. You might feel good now, but it will catch up to you. Trust me. And simply wrapping all that into one is just a lack of confidence, man. When you get hit with acne, hair thinning, just bad skin, low sex drive, low energy, you just start to feel less confident in yourself. And I'm telling you guys right now, like I said, it's not worth it. Slow down in order to speed up later. I was so fixated on speeding up my process to get to a place where I truly felt I was destined to, and still do right now as I'm sitting here making this video. But at what cost? Because in that time, all I've done was slow down my process and my overall progress and introduce a whole new caveat of variables I now have to focus on controlling. And this past year's Olympia confirmed it. Dating back to 2019, when I won my first 3 bodybuilding shows that I've ever competed in, to then go on to 2020 when I earned my IFBB Pro card, and then fast forward into 2022 when I stepped on stage at the New York Pro and then the Miami Muscle Beach Pro, which is where I then earned my Olympia qualification and my first ever pro show win. It was then I realized my physique started to degress. Now, there are a lot of variables, and I don't want to just throw this on the PEDs necessarily, but there is a direct timeline of when my PEDs started to increase, that my look started to decrease. Because at the 2022 Olympia, even though I placed 14th in the world, it wasn't my best look. It slowly started to get worse from there. Because then fast forward to 2023, this year, 5 pro shows, 3 second places, and 2 third places. And a lot of people might sit here and say, hey, that's actually a really good year. You're close. But it's not the necessary placings that got to me. It's the looks that I brought to those stages. Extremely inconsistent, tired, fatigued, and just a lack of pop. Last year taught me a lot, man. It really did. And I started to really notice a shift in my physique, like I mentioned, as the PEDs started to increase. I want to make this clear. There were a lot of other variables that took place over the time as well, whether it was myself getting married, whether it was just traveling for client shows, just having a lot of added responsibility, started businesses. All of these things were also happening at the same time. And I had to sit back and ask myself, was I being intentful about my day-to-day in order to bring the best look to stage? And I'm always going to be hard on myself. I always think I can be doing more. Did I eat my meals? Yes. Did I do my cardio? Absolutely. Did I follow my plan? Absolutely. There was not anything that wasn't controlled, but I just think the intent of the day-to-day slightly slipped compared to the previous years. But I don't think necessarily that would justify my look diminishing that much. But I'm gonna leave that, guys, up to you, but I wanted to make sure you guys were fully understanding of kind of everything that took place over that time. So what now? I'm 28 years old, and going through the highs and the lows of what has been the last couple of years, I've had a perspective shift. Now I have time, and I need to make sure that I maximize that time in order to maximize my potential, and stop forcing it and stop rushing it, and making sure that next time I step on stage, I'm bringing the improvements that the judges are looking for. Instead of pushing, and bringing a tired look to the stage, bringing a reinforced and just a look that I know I can bring in. I love this sport more than people could ever imagine, truly. I wake up, the first thing on my mind is what I need to do in order to be the best version of myself today and to maximize my tomorrow. And I felt like some of that pressure as well has been, heavily on me. And so much so that, I'm not doing certain things because I just want to be the best bodybuilder, when that's another thing that I want to focus on, is also being the best husband, being the best business owner, being the best son, whatever it might be. I know there's other things out there that if I invest my effort and time into, that it will be a direct correlation and a direct investment into the best bodybuilding version of me. And that's what sometimes people don't understand. They've so much focus on everything that is bodybuilding that sometimes that is actually taking away from who they are as a bodybuilder. And I know it might sound weird, but trust me when I say, you invest in other aspects, it will come full circle to that thing that you are so passionate about. And after this year's Olympia, I cold turkey all of my compounds, coming off of all of my orals, coming off of all of my injections, outside of 150 mg of testosterone. And probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but if you guys were prepping from February all the way up until October, it kind of felt the way that I felt. I think some of you guys might understand, but it just was one of those things that I just wanted to feel comfortable again. And it's safe to say that I didn't for a while. It took me 4 or 5 weeks just to start to feel, good, because those hormonal imbalances kind of took over those times. But so since the Olympia, I've only been taking 150 mg of testosterone per week. Just a few days ago, I started to implement 4 IUs of GH into my daily cycle, 2 IUs in the morning and 2 IUs at night. And right now, that is all that I'm currently taking. I just got my blood work back just before I started the GH, and all of my markers went in a great position. My thyroid is back into a healthy range. My insulin levels are in a good range. My heart, my lipid count, everything is back in a good range, and I could not be more thankful. And honestly, at this time, this was something that I haven't been this happy in a long time, and I haven't felt this good. I truly started to follow down a path of less is more. If you start to build up a toxic foundation, your body can't thrive in that. So taking the dosages that I'm taking now, I feel good. I'm happy. Some of those side effects have truly mitigated, and now I'm just focusing on training my ass off, being consistent, and all aspects of my life, whether that's business, my meal plan, my cardio, my wife, whatever it might be. And I'm able to actually just kind of take the lens off a little bit and broaden it up. So again, ever since my blood work and all of these things, and it enticed me to make this video because, I feel like a lot of people can learn from this. And as somebody who's at the top level and, is kind of blinded by their own success, I think it's important for other people to maybe see this video and maybe stop themselves before they get to a point of no return. So after a few more weeks of this health phase, I'm going to start my first off-season push. And keep in mind, this is like my first off-season push in like the last 2-3 years, which I'm really excited about. And the only difference between this cycle and previous cycles, it's going to be less, but it's also going to be calculated. So with that, I'm going to go off adjustments on how I feel. So I will be introducing a higher level of testosterone. So going from 150 up to about 500 mg per week. And from there, I will also be keeping the GH the same. I will be introducing NPP, which is a nandrolone compound primarily used in an off season. And I'm going to start off with about 250 mg per week and only titrate up if I don't feel or see any side effects. And that's the only off-season compounds that I'm gonna take. Even though I love Primo, I love these certain things that can also enhance your look, right now I'm focusing on enhancing my feeling, the progression in the gym, and again, maybe down the road I'll introduce something, because right now my plan is not to rush this. If I feel good, I'm gonna ride that out. And then from there, I'll continue to make adjustments based off of how I feel and as well as blood work. You know, I don't know when the next time I'm gonna step on stage. I really don't. All I do know is that next time I step on stage, I'm gonna be bringing a clean, a refreshed, and a look that the judges truly wanna reward. Because I know I have the intangibles. I know I have what is required to be one of the best men's physique, if not the best men's physique athlete in the fucking world. But that's just something you can't rush. So I'm excited to get back to work. I've learned a lot over my career, and I'm young. And over the last couple of years, I truly felt like I learned a lot about who I am and also where I'm going. And because of that, I've never been this motivated in my life. So you're gonna see a different version of me next time I step on stage. Get ready. This is just the beginning.